Anyone remember this neat little game called Guild Wars 2? Well, in 2023, it's actually still kicking and doing kind of well.
Do you love epic battles?
No.
Immersing yourself in a deep storyline?
No.
Or exploring a massive open world?
Mm-mm.
How does managing your inventory sound?
Amazing.
What about role-playing as a human female for their...
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. This is the best gameplay. I'm playing Guild Wars 2, baby. This game just has everything I want.
superior animations, or having potentially thousands of skins to unlock to customize your character's fashion. Not into that? Maybe you want to be a Spartan cat responsible for the destruction of 2/3 of the human population.
Retreat is not an option.
Okay, that's a bit harsh. How about relaxing on a fishing boat and then being told by some fern lady that you're fishing the wrong way?
Nice.
Do you like getting blinded every time you wield your weapon?
Blowing flashbang.
Trust me, you can get used to it.
Nice.
How about being able to play with your friends and not having to pay a sub fee every month? If that's the case, then
Also
I've got
good.
the perfect game for you. Guild Wars 2 is a buy-to-play MMORPG with an extensive free trial. There are 3 expansions out with plenty of story content, 2 PvP game modes, and a horizontal progression system that makes it easy for players to get right into the game while also providing a wide amount of content for
Guild Wars' biggest thing is the horizontal progression. Guild Wars is one of the only games that has done horizontal progression and actually succeeded at it. You know, there are no real items that are just flat out better than other items. There is very, very limited, if any, vertical progression most in this game. And, you know, there's a reason to do almost everything again in this game for some kind of thing that you can unlock later on. It's pretty great for people who want to, you know, just feel progression.
players to find what they enjoy. Since everyone has their own preferences, and with the relatively large amount of time investment MMOs require to play them, players will ultimately need to make a choice. While Guild Wars 2 innovated many of the systems that other games use today, some of them might be outdated or unrefined. So the question is, does it still compete 10 years later?
Yes. Probably.
By far, the most important aspect of an MMO is the combat, because you'll be engaged in that most of the time. And in Guild Wars 2, the hybrid tab target and action combat feels extremely fluid and interactive because every skill has its own animation. You see the big hammer being dropped on you before you get knocked down. And you can dodge fireballs by moving out of the way. They aren't heat-seeking missiles like in most tab target combat systems. Also, you're not sitting there getting stun locked because every ability staggers you. There are stun breaks, dodges with evade frame.
Okay, while this is true, there is one super big problem with Guild Wars 2 combat that no one in Guild Wars says, but we can see it right here on the screen. You see these circles? I forget what they are called, but essentially, when you see something like this, it has the ability to imbue your attack with some kind of extra thing or whatever. And as you can imagine, well, these things aren't exactly rare. So, when you're doing something in the world, it is not uncommon to see like 50 of these circles of smaller and bigger sizes just absolutely get overlapped and creating an absolute fiesta. Clown fiesta, sadly. And that is probably the weakest part of Guild Wars 2 combat, is the fact that your screen is always going to be cluttered with these circles that just feel kind of bad.
And you have way more control of the mobility of your character compared to other games, which means your survival is mostly in your hands. To some, that sounds great, but to others who want a more normalized combat system that doesn't require you to learn how to move your camera and tab target in the middle of an action combat encounter, it can be a lot to learn.
Nice.
The user interface is simple and clean because you don't have 70 skills that you can use at any given time. You have multiple weapon sets or transforms that replace your skill bar every time you swap. So maybe 8 to 12 skills you can use at any given time.
Yes.
But by managing...
AKA, this is the golden ratio that World of Warcraft should go, but they kind of have settled on 50 for some stupid reason.
When you swap your weapon, or when you choose to enter a form, you can still have a wide variety of skills to handle many situations. It's quite amazing how complex the combat can be without becoming overwhelming. However, the UI does lack customizability. You can't move health bars around if you're a healer, or track specific buffs to make them more visible and easier to play around. While there are some changes you can make, they can be very limited, and add-ons aren't supported enough to enable a solution to this. That being said, many people don't like to fiddle with add-ons and customizing their game for hours before they can play it. And Guild Wars 2's default UI is designed to be easy to read. Buffs and debuffs are simplified to boons and conditions. So for
the ring things apply conditions to attacks.
Example, the protection boon reduces strike damage taken by 33%, and many skills will, instead of reduce damage to a specific percent, they just give protection. Just by understanding what each of the several conditions and boons do, you can often understand what is happening in a fight.
Yeah, you see? Look at that. It's an absolute fiesta. Shitty fiesta. And this is every fight, and this is honestly even pretty tame.
Even if you don't know exactly what you're fighting against, which is really important to enabling a fun and fast-paced action combat that doesn't allow you the time to read skill tooltips in battle. Now, even though the combat is reactive and reliant on your positioning and well-timed dodges, there are still tanks and healers, but they provide a less defined role. Guild Wars 2 has an optional trinity that allows the classes to find their own ways to play. The different choices you can make in your build or gear can essentially allow any class to play any role. Normally, a thief builds for burst damage and uses mobility to disengage for survival, and a guardian builds more team-oriented with boon application and healing. But with the elite specializations which evolve the classes further, you could play the guardian as a mobile assassin, and yes, the sneaky and bursty thief archetype can even reroll to a healer if they choose to go for healing gear.
Okay, this is a very questionable explanation of what's happening here, but here's the gist of it, right? Guild Wars has 12 professions or something like that, and they're called professions, not classes. And when you pick that class, it's pretty basic except the Mesmer. The Mesmer is kind of like a super unique thing that only Guild Wars honestly has. But you know, everything else is your classical warriors, rogues, paladins, and all of that garbage. And when you get to max level, when you get a certain amount of hero points or whatever it's called, you have the ability to unlock a subclass. And that subclass is not actually a subclass, that's a full-fledged 100% class that can put that, well, not can, but will 100% change how you play the game. So rogues can become, you know, not melee dealers, but, you know, exclusively range. You know, maybe some class that's previously a tank now is a DPSer. Maybe a healer is now a tank. You know, there's all these different options that can furthermore increase your game style and change the way you play if you want them.
And trait for support. Obviously, there are better ways to heal than a thief, and metagaming will always occur for those who are looking for the optimal way to play, but the game never really forces you to do that unless you're going for the most competitive content in the game. Mostly this is because the game is balanced around casual play. If you can play however you want, then it doesn't matter what you play. And if it doesn't matter what you play, then are your decisions and actions even meaningful? That depends on you. If you want to get rewards without much effort, play the most powerful builds in the easiest content. Want more of a challenge? Play challenge modes in raids or strike missions. Climb the ladder in PvP, or try soloing group content.
Can you solo group content? I have no idea.
Sure, if you're new to the game, you'll have plenty of content to go through to get way more than your money's worth out of it. However, for the game to feel like it's thriving and even worth experiencing in the first place, there should be other players actively playing the game.
Oh no.
Playing how you want is nice, but why is it that people keep playing the game after 10 years with only 3 expansions worth of content? Guild Wars
Because they don't have a lot of friends.
2 has horizontal progression. It may take you a few months to reach the maximum power level of Ascended gear, but once you're there, it never goes higher. Legendary gear only provides more convenience, not more power, so you can get the same level of gear from raids as you can from much more casual content like crafting or world bosses. Though you'd get it faster from raids, which would allow you to gear up your next characters or alternate playstyles. Because the game makes it so easy to level up and gear your characters, it's not painful to try out other classes to learn them, and becoming a multi-classer is one of the goals people go for. Otherwise, the main reward that players work towards is cosmetics, skins, conveniences, which they can get from specific activities.
Nice. But anyway, Guild Wars is actually going to change this. Guild Wars finally, after a decade, has figured out that, wait a minute, it's not kind of actually good that we release like one big content update and then, you know, everyone's content start for like a year or something, because that's also a huge problem that Guild Wars has. Now, they have decided they're going to release smaller updates, but way more frequently, so people don't run out of things to actually do, which is kind of like a super good move that you probably should have done like years and years and years ago. But yeah, and also there's a new expansion coming or something like that, like one of the big ones. Yeah.
Or by earning gold in the method they find works best for them. Unfortunately, most of the best skins are on the cash shop, but since you can farm gold and convert that gold to the cash shop currency, you can choose whether your time or your money is worth more. The optional role trinity and horizontal progression rely on each other to work, because if you want the freedom to play the way you want, there needs to be less pressure from outside influences like the reward systems or other players. To those who want the feeling of constantly chasing that carrot on a stick, you'll be scratching your head. But for players who like horizontal progression and are motivated enough to create their own goals, you've got plenty to do. Think of it like a theme park, but most of the rides are sandboxes. Every game mode has a definitive area that you go to, but what you do there is not so defined. There are no quests in Guild Wars 2, at least not traditional ones.
Yeah.
Instead of walking
By the way, that's a really good system. You just go places and things happen in the world. It is a blast. Leveling in Guild Wars actually is probably the best experience in any MMORPG.
An NPC who tells you to kill some boars, most open world maps have heart quests, which are localized activities you can do to help the people in that area. And each map has an event system which is more interactive than static quests and gives players a reason to group up.
Another one. And another one.
But for more long-term quests, there's the achievement panel. You may need to collect 5 items to complete the collection and get the final reward, which makes you go out and do 5 different activities. However, because you can be given a unique item as reward for a very specific task, and each step in a collection may unlock the next one, you can essentially be sent on a quest chain, organized differently, but the same in terms of gameplay. Mounts are also a major part of the experience. You'll get your
Mounts are an actual problem in the game, because when you're at low level you have no mount, and well, movement is kind of slow, and well, it just slows down the game not having a mount in the early levels. That's pretty much like kind of it.
Raptor early on, but when you reach the Path of Fire expansion content is when you'll start earning more of them. The first few are part of the storyline, and they all have their own strengths and limitations for traversing the map, so you don't just pick the fastest mount and go from A to B in a straight line. You have to climb, jump, and glide across the maps. And as you level up your mounts, they get stronger abilities for traveling around the map, which allows you to take shortcuts or passages you couldn't before. Mounts are not just fun to use, but they're a big part of the progression of the game. There are longer collection quests to get some of the more niche mounts, and all mounts need to be leveled up with the Mastery system. After you reach max level, your experience points go towards Masteries, which can allow you to progress your account in various ways. You can access certain vendors, which sell new stat types, improve your character's ability to interact with the environment, or teach your mount new abilities, which let you reach new areas. Now that's all fun for the first time you go through, but the game is a little bit too convenient in my opinion. Because almost everything is account bound, you can't re-experience those progression systems again on another character.
Well, that's for each and every one to decide for themselves, honestly, right?
There's something magical about going through the Heart of Thorns expansion your first time, but once you have all the masteries for it on your second playthrough, the feeling of danger and exploration isn't quite there. Also, once you've leveled up all of your mounts, all of your characters have those mounts and masteries for them. It would be nice if you kept them.
It makes sense. If you think you don't want a system like this, then buy a new account. Well, buy the game again. It should be that simple, okay? But the reality is, no one wants to re-experience leveling your mount again. It's stupid and useless. No one honestly wants a system like this. Like, if you really want to re-experience leveling up from zero, just make another account. Just buy another account. It's not that deep. It's not that hard.
Mounts, but the masteries were reset on each character, so you have more reason to go out and explore the world again. Even though there are so many unique classes and fun game modes, the game is so convenient that you don't need to play it. And when you don't have mandatory grind, players choose to do other things, not necessarily because they want to, but because they have other obligations. This is great for casual players who don't want the pressure of a second job when they have.
But yeah, as you can see, the biggest weakness of Guild Wars 2 is definitely that the graphics are definitely showing. Like, look at this. Yeah, it is what it is. They need to make a Guild Wars 3 and just re-implement the best received things of Guild Wars 2 and then move forward. Now that would be a good thing.
Have enough responsibilities, but for those who want a constant presence from the community, it doesn't really foster the highest populations.
Look at all those
PvP in Guild Wars
circles.
2 is also pretty casual. The only tangible end goals are titles, so there isn't much incentive to try very hard.
And you
But
don't need
everyone
a bit
gets rewarded
gear.
some gold for playing, and since everything is normalized from the start, it's very easy to get into.
Yeah.
Players get addicted to the fast-paced combat and take pride in getting better at the game because of how much skill expression matters. Also, despite a lack of PvP game modes, the strategic element of Conquest 5v5s allows for diverse roles where one player who wants to be a healer can be as useful to their team as someone who wants to fight 1v1, or someone who wants to deal massive damage over time can be as useful as someone who wants to quickly burst enemies in short windows of time. That being said, PvP is by far the least popular game mode in Guild Wars 2.
Yep.
Most people prefer to go into world versus world for a more open world PvP
Which is an
experience.
absolute
You can
shit
join a
fest.
large group and get in huge
Like,
battles
world versus world is beyond a doubt the biggest shit fest in the game.
while trying to siege castles, or you can roam around by yourself and
Like,
gain
like this is what happens in world versus world. See this circle? Now multiply this by 100 on all of your screen. That's world versus world essentially. It's a shit fest.
isolated players or take smaller objectives. You need supply to create siege to capture the bigger objectives, but it isn't really necessary for an entire group to capture supply camps, since a solo player can do that. This means that you can play the way you want to play and still contribute to the overall strategy of the map in some way. You can take things extremely seriously and become a scout that calls out the enemy locations for your group, or contests objectives to cut off supply lines, but the overall politics and strategy of the week-long matchups between servers may not be interesting to you. Some people just run around dueling enemies or role-playing. It's truly the sandbox game mode of Guild
Role-players.
Wars 2, and despite the
Not
lack of
good.
direction and clear goals, player interactions create meaningful content that has kept
Overclass.
people in the game for over 10 years. After playing other MMOs, Guild Wars 2 is a breath of fresh air, Similar to that feeling of when you graduated from school. You don't need to go to class anymore, so all the grind is optional. You can...
Wait, no, when you graduated from school, you understood, wait a minute, life outside of school actually sucks. Wait a minute, now I need to do shit. Nah, man. When you graduated school, it didn't feel good. It's like, uh-oh. Problems are starting. That's what happened when you graduated school, okay? And Guild Wars, I don't know even if you can use Guild Wars as like the same example, but whatever.
Visit your friends if you want, but you're no longer crammed into a small room with them. And you're now free to go...
No, you don't actually visit your friends. Everyone has shit to do, places to be, people to meet. And it like takes you a fucking month to actually just figure out when everyone can actually meet up if you're only like fucking 3 people or some shit. It's ridiculous.
Pursue your own goals instead of those others
if
tell
you're
you
not obviously living like next door to each other.
You to go for. Because of the buy-to-play model, the freedom to play how you want, and the removal of all the unnecessary grind that gets between you and the fun parts of the game, Guild Wars 2
I mean, there's still a lot of grind, but yeah, it is unnecessary. You can just pretty much choose to exclusively not give a fuck. It is what it is.
Game you can always keep coming back to. It's healthy to experience new things and take breaks, but there's a reason why most players never
I think addicts would disagree with that take.
Truly quit. But if you like this video or found it helpful in any way, consider
that's pretty much it. There we go. Well, it is what it is. Volume. It is what it is. Well, Guild Wars, pretty good game, honestly. If they made an upgraded version with modern graphics, because the thing is, like, you can see it every bit, right? The graphics just don't feel that good. And honestly, I never liked the numbers in Guild Wars. The numbers just take too much space. But other than that, Guild Wars is a phenomenal game. You know, I have friends that actually still play it time to time and dabble in it because it's just good. It's just fun, you know? It's not like World of Warcraft where it's gonna be, oh, is it a miss or is it a super big miss? No, Guild Wars is just good all around. You know, also, he didn't mention it, but the stories. The main stories. The MSQ, as Final Fantasy losers would put it. That's a pretty big deal also in this game. And those main stories are actually pretty fun. And the activities that you can do, like the collectibles are so insane. Like there's vistas to collect, there's places to go in towns, you know, like climbing puzzles. There's so much of that. It's absolutely insane. Great video, but he kind of didn't scratch even the half of what you can honestly do in Guild Wars. You know, he kind of talked about combat and, you know, all of that stuff, and that's good and fine and dandy, but a lot was not said here. The game is, like, 3 times, honestly, more what you can do in it, if you want. It's insane. Well, anyway, this was Quizzer Sid. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.